We're talking about Black Lives Matter patches, signs all over Major League Baseball, helmets, going to be on helmets in the NFL, players kneeling, patches on jerseys everywhere. Your thoughts on that? Of course, earlier yesterday, Yankee Nationals game, even Dodgers saw the playing of a video from the Players Alliance, a group of African-American players calling for racial justice. You saw players on the San Francisco Giants squad wearing T-shirts, Black Lives Matter, as they were warming up, so on and so forth. Rudy Giuliani, who I think is a disgrace, he's lost his mind. Anyway, he was just scorching Major League Baseball, calling the league's anthem kneelers hypocritical, saying the Black Lives Matter supporters in baseball are disgraceful. Those are the words of Rudy Giuliani, and now he's being blasted by Major League Baseball and all those associated with it, including the New York Yankees. On the other side of things, there are some players that are being talked about. One on the San Francisco Giants, forgive me, I've never heard of him before, Sam Conrad, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He refused to kneel as all the other Giants players were kneeling for the national anthem. His reason for it, he said, I'm a Christian. He said, I just believe that I can't kneel before anybody unless it's God. So your thoughts on that as well. 702.
By the way,
just
Brian,
give out the number.
okay.
702-257-5396. Again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, is 257-5396, and we have a lot of busy phone calls, so we'll get to those. What's up, JD?
No, so in that particular game, there was the kneeling took place prior to the national anthem. Then during the national anthem, they actually stood up for it. Mm-hmm. So I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. Now, as far as Sam Kumra, just being very religious and not kneeling for anything but outside of God, how can you have a problem with that either? I mean that's
I didn't say I did.
Okay, good.
I never said I did.
I don't have any issue with having a kneel of solidarity prior to the national anthem, as long as you're standing during the national anthem,
let me be clear.
which I'm happy that took place.
It is the player's right whether they want to knee or not.
Of course.
But here's what I have a problem with. Somebody like Rudy Giuliani and many people on the right calling players disgraceful for kneeling. The President of the United States, who once called NFL players sons of bitches. I don't have a problem if you don't want to kneel, and I don't have a problem if you kneel. Let's stop attacking people because they kneel. That is very important. Your thoughts, 257-5396. Let's go to James. James is first up on the Vegas Take. James, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, James?
Hey, I think a good way to get rid of all of this is, for one thing, for police reform, how if two guys walk into a liquor store and one guy pulls a gun and robs a liquor store, they're both charged. And I think if we had that sort of a policy with the police department, if one cop is getting out of line and his partner doesn't get him in line, he's going to face the same charges.
I don't have a problem with that.
That would make them police each other. I also think, and this may sound racist, but I believe that we should recruit more African-American, more Hispanic police officers.
That's not racist.
The demographics in the police department should match up. That way, if somebody gets out of line, and it
James, that's not racist.
Like a racial type thing.
James, that's
and
not.
My other thing is, without making you mad, Brian, is the only thing that I would say is I'm not African-American, and when I get pulled over by a police officer, like for a traffic ticket or whatever, my hands are at 10 and 2 on the wheel.
I agree with you.
I don't have anything to say. The problem is, and none of these people deserve to be killed or anything like that, but cooperate with the police.
James.
As bad as it is for your pride.
All right, James, hang on.
Alive.
James, I don't disagree with anything you just said in regards to, more minorities. I talk about non-compliance on this show all the time, James.
Yeah.
All the time. I agree with you. That doesn't mean that if you comply, you have 100% chance of not getting hurt. But I agree with you. I agree with you.
And if your culture basically emphasizes noncompliance, like for example in Portland, there were little kids walking around. I'm talking, these kids were 3 years old. They had signs that said "F the police." They were walking. They were walking around with their
I don't
parents.
agree with that, but what does it have to do with compliance?
That's the culture. If your culture, tells you that the police officers are the enemy, you're much less likely to comply. So
I think
you have
if
to
you
factor that in
okay,
as well. But yeah, you're right. If you comply with the police officer and you're not armed, the chances of you dying during arrest are basically microscopic.
Something you are not factoring in is that if you are an African American in this country, chances are you have been pulled over for no reason, and you have been at some point in your life been harassed by police officers for no reason. So I understand why you want to bring up, well, it's in the culture to hate police. It's also in the culture to understand. Hold on, let me finish. Let me finish.
You have no problem.
You have to let me finish. You have to let me finish. It's also in the culture that at times minorities are treated differently than people that look like you and me. You're just factoring in one thing and saying, well, these African Americans, they're brought up at a young age to hate the police. Well, there are also some reasons for that. Do I agree? Hold on. Do I agree with it? No. Do I think that people should be holding up signs that say F the police? No. Do I think people should be screaming in police officers' faces and assaulting them?
I'm not talking about people. I'm saying
No.
2-year-old kids, 3-year-old kids.
Okay, well, my opinion doesn't change.
A 3-year-old child, a parent giving a 3-year-old child a sign that says F the police is completely ridiculous, Brian.
And I would go by that.
And the chances are that those kids are going to grow up hating the police and thinking that police are the enemy.
Okay,
and that's a problem, and that leads to noncompliance.
And as I said a few 30 seconds ago, I don't agree with that, but that doesn't take away from the fact that we do have issues between law enforcement and minorities in this country.
You're also acting like there's not African American police officers. There are.
I never said that.
And the numbers are basically equal.
I never said that.
I
never said that there weren't African American police officers.
A Caucasian police officer kills an African American person at the same rate as an African American police officer.
Okay, again, we can go over these stats, but
by that logic, then, if you're being treated differently because of the color of your skin, and the person treating you differently is the same skin color as you, then how does that correlate? It's
very simple. We just fundamentally disagree.
That's fine.
And the fundamental disagreement is this, and I can give you facts to back up my opinions, and that is that minorities as a whole are not treated the same way that white people are treated in this country by law enforcement. Let's get back to the phone calls at 702-257-5396. Let's go to Barry. Barry is next on the Vegas Take. Barry, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Barry?
Hey, first of all, congratulations on being syndicated. I love your show. But I have some issues with some of the statistics that JD likes to throw out cavalierly.
Sure.
Can you tell me that stat that you threw out earlier about blacks being 40% less likely to be
more likely
killed?
No, 40% more likely to be killed in an unarmed arrest than Caucasian. That was the 2017 UCR.FBI.gov.
JD also said that he believes whites are killed by police 2 times more.
In violent crime arrests, that's true. On a per arrest basis, that's true.
Right, but does that normalize for blacks make up about 10% of the American population?
Absolutely. That factors that in, yes.
Okay. I'll take your word for it now, but I will definitely fact-check that.
Yeah, you should. You definitely should.
I'm looking at the polls about the Black Lives Matter movement, one from 3 days ago, Washington Post, ABC. It says here that 63% of Americans say that they support it.
Exactly.
There was one last week from CBS News, 60%.
I saw that as well. There are more people. I agree, Barry. There are more people in this country that are with the Black Lives Matter movement than against it, and that's the only reason.
What you might be thinking about is 92% of Democrats support Black Lives Matter movement, 62% of independents, and only about 32% of Republicans.
Yeah, it's very possible that I saw a poll that had just like the poll, like the Quinnipiac poll that polls Donald Trump, which uses 24% Republican. I could have seen a poll that polls 80% Republican and 20% Democrat. That's very possible.
If you go also throughout the country and you take into account each black person and each person that is white, the stats back up my opinion that black people are twice as more likely per person to be shot on the streets by a police officer than somebody who is white. Let's get back to the phone calls.
But you're not factoring in the amount of times that someone is arrested, and the chances of an African American being arrested is 3 times likelier than a Caucasian.
Just because you're more likely to be arrested,
6 times for a violent crime.
Just because you're more likely to be arrested doesn't mean that you're more likely to get shot. There's no stats that would back that up. 702-257-5396. Go to Mike. Mike, you are next up on the Vegas Take. Mike, what's going on?
What's up, Mike?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Good.
Doing well.
I'm against all of the Black Lives Matter in sports.
Okay, tell us why.
The point is, we go to watch a game. We don't want to watch politics or anything. These guys are paid high to do their job, to play a game. And our national anthem, and it stands for our soldiers And all the people that died for this country has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter.
Okay, so let me
That's
respond to that.
They are
Mike, let me respond.
on our
Mike,
flag.
Mike, let me respond to that.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
Well-
I'll be like you. Let me finish. Them people, you don't stomp on our flag. You got your brother died in Iraq.
Okay, I get your point, Mike. Now I'm going to keep you on the line.
Very
Mike,
wrong. So
Mike.
10 minutes after, do it.
Okay, Mike, I get your point. Hang on the line here. Now I'm going to respond. The American flag, in my personal opinion, is just like religion in this country. Nobody should tell you what it means to you. It's a personal thing. That's number one. Just because you feel a certain way. Excuse me, you could say I'm wrong all day till the cows come home. It is a personal thing. That's number one. Number two, you're right. People died for the freedoms in this country. Some of those freedoms are, if players want to take a knee, they can take a knee so long as their bosses say it's okay. They died so that they have the freedom to speak out. That is number two. Number three, just because, well, you can laugh all you want to. It's true. Number three, just because somebody like you, sir, feels a certain way about the flag, that's fine. Guess what? In this country, you don't have to watch sports if you don't like people kneeling and if it bothers you that much. But let me ask you this, sir. Did it bother you when George Floyd was killed and murdered by that police officer? Did that bother you just as much as people kneeling during the national anthem?
Yeah, that did bother me.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, sir. You have the right not to watch sports.
He tried to paint you into a racist. You're not a racist. So good job answering that question correctly.
I don't try to paint.
By the way, George.
Hold on a second. You're wrong. No, you're wrong.
No, that's what. Yeah.
No, you're wrong.
Yes.
No,
if he said no, you would have called him a racist.
Excuse me.
Brian, you do the same trick.
I don't
you
try
do the
to
same
paint,
trick 15 times a week.
Well, you know what? Just because
you were going to do that to him.
No, you know what? You're wrong.
And he avoided it.
You know what? I'm not going to put up with that crap.
I'm not
you're
wrong, Brian.
No.
Okay.
You're wrong a lot, and you're wrong here.
I'm not wrong about that.
Yes, you are.
I'm
You were
not
wrong
wrong
about
about
the
that.
stats you gave out, and
No,
now
I
you're wrong
wasn't.
about this.
I was not wrong about the stats I gave out at all.
I don't try to paint somebody out to be a racist. Okay. You know what I do?
You were going to push him into a corner. And if he said that didn't bother him, and he was bothered more by the Black Lives, then you would have called him a racist.
It's not my
That's
fault.
what you have done.
It's not my fault that when we interview somebody that you disagree with, you don't ask questions and I do. I ask questions no matter who I'm talking to, because that's my job as a talk show host. I'm not trying to paint him out to be a racist. You know what I was trying to do, if you were listening? I'm trying to explain that it is his right not to watch games as an American.
I'm sure he already knows that.
If he disagrees. But what I tried to explain to him was this. The people that died for this country also gave you the freedom to express yourself, to kneel. And if these owners or the people that are writing the checks to these athletes say it's okay, then they also have the right to do that, just like he doesn't have the right to watch games. I wasn't trying to paint him to be a racist. Here's what I was trying to understand with the man, and I'm glad he gave me that answer. I wanted to make sure that if an African American is brutally killed, he also holds anger, and I would hope more anger towards somebody dying than somebody kneeling.
And if he said that he didn't hold anger, what would you have done?
Then I would say he's an idiot and he's not credible.
Would you have called him a racist?
Well, let's put this 2 and 2 together.
So the answer is yes. So I was right.
Okay, so let me know when I can answer your question. You don't put words in my mouth.
Okay.
I'm going to try to answer your question. If somebody doesn't have a problem with an African American murdered by a white police officer, as we all saw, doesn't have any anger in that, but he holds all the anger in the world towards African Americans or people of any race kneeling for this cause, then I think it is a fair assessment to say the man is probably a racist.
So you were going to paint him into a racist.
I'm not.
If he answered the question the way that because you formulated the question very well, because you're very good at what you do.
Do you disagree?
Had he not answered the question that way, you would have called him a racist, which is what I said from the beginning.
I didn't know the way he was going to answer the question, and now I will ask you the question.
What's
because
up?
If somebody has no problem with what happened to George Floyd, and by the way, there are people out there that had no problem what happened to him. If you have no problem with what happened to George Floyd, but you hold so much anger and hostility towards professional athletes kneeling for this movement, what would you call somebody like that?
Sure, probably racist, prejudice, something along those lines.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm right
fine.
then.
So no,
right,
but
so
that's what we're trying to do the entire time.
We agree. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm trying to understand his opinions. That's what I'm trying to do, and I'm glad he answered the question the way he did.
You had to flip it on me. And you got a little personal.
702.
Unnecessary, Brian. Unnecessary.
Not getting personal at all.
Let's continue.
Not getting personal at all. I asked you the same question, and I said, what would you call somebody like that? You gave the same answer that I feel. We agree. I'm not trying to paint anybody in a corner. I'm trying to ask people relevant questions to find out where they're coming from. And that man has the right to feel the way he does, and I'm glad he answered the question the way he did. 702-257-5396, number to call. I apologize. We're going on some rants here. We got full phone lines, so I want to get to all of them. Let's go to Mark. Mark, you're next up on the Vegas Take. Mark, go. What's on your mind?
What's up, Mark?
Hey, how you guys? How you doing?
Good.
Doing well.
I'd appreciate if people would just become non-racist.
Yeah, so would I. So would I, Mark.
We have these things on your applications that ask you what race you are.
Right.
That stuff needs to go away.
I agree.
People need to stop with all this and just love one another.
Easier said than done.
And the fact that I have to say Hispanic American, African American, white American instead of just being able to say American, to me is a real problem. Identity politics is a huge issue, and it divides the country significantly, and it has for a long time, and it's perpetuated by one particular political party, and has been again for a long time.
So it's Democrats' fault.
Notice things like this.
Give me a break.
They just tend to pop up.
You're right. It's all Democrats' fault.
During
Republicans
election
are great.
years.
You're right.
Just notice that.
No, you're right.
It happens.
I agree with you. All these police officers.
Every 4 years or so.
With you. I agree.
Black Lives Matter. Something along these lines pops up.
Yep, I agree with you. All these police officers throughout the country, Mark, that are doing harm to minorities, they must all be Democrats. It must be the deep state run by George Soros.
Do you know how many police officers were injured in the first month of the protests? There were 1,000.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how many African Americans have been mistreated by police officers in the last 500 years?
I can tell you the stats. I can tell you how many unarmed African Americans died at the hands of police in 2017. The answer is 48.
I hope it's not the same stat that you just gave. I hope it's not the same stat you just gave, where more than 50% of people in the country are against Black Lives Matter, because you're factually wrong.
Here's another stat.
Oh, I can't wait for this one. I'm sure that's right too. Go ahead.
Okay, a new Rasmussen report.
Oh, Rasmussen. Yeah, that's not right wing at all. That's a very non-biased publication. Yes.
Donald Trump has
ahead.
49% approval rating with African Americans.
And if you find any other poll across the country, it would disagree with that. They have zero credibility. But I'm not surprised you sourced Rasmussen that has no credibility when it comes to non-biased surveys like that one. There's not one other poll.
CNN does?
I didn't say CNN. Didn't say CNN. Didn't say CNN.
The two polls.
Fox News. What about Fox News?
The two polls.
No, what about Fox News?
The two polls that when the person called in and said that your numbers are wrong, he quoted CNN and ABC.
And
do those polls have?
And I'm going to quote.
Are those polls not biased?
Well, guess what I'm going to do?
So they're only biased when I used to make my point, but when you used to make your point, they're not biased.
Well, you're not letting me talk. Fox News, 49% to 41. Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Go ahead and eat that one for lunch. 702-257-5396.
Right.
Let's go to Bob.
It is not going to be close.
Bob, you're next on the Vegas Take. Well, I just disproved what you were just saying. 49 to 41, Fox News. So don't give me this CNN, MSNBC.
62% of Americans say they are afraid.
All right, I'm done with this.
They're afraid to talk about their political views.
All right.
50% of liberals, strong liberals, say that they think that if you support Donald Trump, you should be fired from your job.
All right, let's give callers a chance to respond. Let's go to Bob. Bob, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Bob?
Along with the line with what JD was saying. They're training him young. Alicia Garza was one of the founders of Black Lives Matter. Was an invocation of Girl Scouts up in Oakland. She gave him a new badge. It has an R on it. You know what the R stands for? Radical.
Okay, so I just said, Bob, I just said 5 minutes ago that I have no doubt that there are some radicals within the Black Lives Matter movement. I also said
He's in charge of it.
Let me finish. Because you don't listen to what I say. I also said let's assume that the organizers of Black Lives Matter are Marxist and horrible radical people. Let's just assume you're right. It still doesn't take away from the millions of people marching throughout the country, the majority of those people, good people that are not Marxist. It doesn't take away any credibility from them. Would you agree with that?
Agree with it. But Libby Schaaf, who voted not to defund the police up
there
in
you go
Oakland.
again.
She's the mayor. They vandalized her house yesterday.
Okay, all right, Bob. I appreciate the call. I try to make a point, and then you belabor it with what you were saying, even though you disagree with me, or even though you agree with me. Makes no sense. All right, I think we have time for one more caller. Do we not, Sean?
No, he's just saying that specific mayors across the country that have stood with Black Lives Matter. Within a month of, and this happened in Oakland. It also happened in New York City, where the highest ranking police officer kneeled with Black Lives Matter. A month later, he had his orbital bone broken by a Black Lives Matter activist, and that activist was released the same day by Mayor Bill de Blasio under different pretenses.
257-5396. As I said, I want to get to as many calls as I can, so let's try to squeeze in one before break. Let's go to Travis. Travis is next on the Vegas Take. Travis, I got about a minute for you, my friend. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Travis?
Good morning, gentlemen.
What's up?
I think this comes down to an education thing, just because I love the Black Lives Matter movement, what it stands for. However, though, they've collected over $100 million, and I would like just more education, cultural education, because I think that's what it is.
Sure, I don't have a problem with that.
Because what it is, if you look at way back when we went to school, and we probably kids were about the same age. If you were gay, it was very crazy. Now
Right.
it's a normal thing.
Right.
On education.
Education. I totally agree with you, Travis. Do you agree with me, though, that the majority of those in the Black Lives Matter movement are good people and they just want equality?
I'm going to say majority, yes. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, though, what gets the attention is the radical people that go.
I
that go
agree.
crazy.
Travis, I agree with you 100%. I wish they weren't there. My friend, excellent call. Thank you for making a little
good
bit
call,
of
Travis.
Thank you for making some sense. Yes, I think it is about education. I think that's a big part of it, and I think it's parenting. I think that
it's about having a nuclear family.
yes.
Fatherless families or single parent families are one of the biggest indicators for crime right now, Brian. And crime and poverty.
What's the biggest indicator for a racist, you think? I'm just asking you. What do you think that? Because that's also an issue that we're dealing with here. People that are racist, people that look at someone and racially profile. Why are you shaking your head? You don't think racism exists?
Obviously, racism exists.
Okay,
Brian.
so why are you shaking your head then? It's a very fair question that I'm asking
To
you.
all races, by races, or by all races.
What is?
I think ignorance is a large part of it, and definitely upbringing.
So it's the same
Yeah,
thing.
I
We
mean,
agree.
there's-
A lot of it is upbringing on both sides of the aisle. We agree.